So this chapter is about the integumentary system. The integument structure is made up of the skin, which is what we call the integument. This is your largest organ, and it's made of two layers, the epidermis and the dermis. The hypodermis is not actually a part of the skin, but it'll lie right underneath the dermis, and it's comprised or composed mostly of fat or adipose tissue. Here's the layers of the integument. We have our epidermis, the dermis, and then that subcutaneous layer, hypodermis, is below the integument layer. The integument functions work to protect your body against trauma, prevent water loss and gain, and help in temperature regulation. They also help in metabolic regulation, immune defense, with your epidermal dendritic cells, sensory reception, and secretion, especially in sweating, which will help lower your temperature of your body and also help to lubricate your hair and skin with oil to help them from drying out. The epidermis is the epithelium or outermost layer of the skin. It's avascular, no blood vessels. It's made of keratinized stratified squamous, which is several layers of those flat-like cells. And the apical-most layer of those tissue will be keratinized. They're filled with keratin and they're dead, providing a protective coat. From deep to superficial, these are the epidermal strata or layers. The stratum basale is the basement layer or closest, the deepest layer. And then we work our way up. The stratum lucidum is found only in thick skin. And here's a look at the epidermal strata. The stratum basale, so the next several slides will take you through the specific characteristics of each layer of the epidermis that I'll let you guys read through on your own. And then thick skin versus thin skin. Thin skin lacks that stratum lucidum, and you'll find your thick skin in the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. There'll be no hair follicles or sebaceous glands in your thick skin. And here's a look at the difference of thick and thin skin. Variations in the epidermis, skin color is determined by hemoglobin, which is red in color, it's the blood pigment. Melanin is produced by melanocytes, and melanin will increase with exposure to UV light, so that's why you get tan or darker in the sun. The relative amounts of two types of melatonin will give people different complexions, so everyone has about the same number of melanocytes themselves, the cells that produce the melanin, but the relative amounts of two different types will give people their different complexions or skin colors. Keratin then is a yellow orangish pigment from foods such as carrots that can build up in the skin. This is a look at how melanin is produced by melanocytes. Some abnormal skin colors, I like to encourage my students to learn this because this is something that you might come across in your careers one day. Someone might come into your ER and they might be jaundiced, or they might have pallor, erythema, cyanosis, bronzing, or albinism. So take a look at those and be familiar with what each means. Variations in the epidermis, skin markings include a nevus or a nevus, which is called a mole. It's localized overgrowth of melanocytes, freckles. I'm fortunate enough to have many freckles and many moles. Hemangioma is a proliferation of blood vessels that can form a benign tumor. And friction ridges is just a fancy word for your fingerprints. The dermis lies deep to the epidermis. There's two layers to it, the papillary and reticular deeper layer. Here are the layers of the dermis. The papillary layer kind of has what we call these dermal papilla, which will interlock in the epidermal ridges. The dermal papilla have blood vessels, which help provide blood to the epidermal layers. And then the reticular layer is kind of where all the fun stuff is going on. You'll see the different types of glands and the hair and different tactile sensory receptors. The papillary layer of the dermis, I'll let you read through that to see how it interlocks with the dermal papilla. The reticular layer and what is all involved there. Stretch marks, wrinkles, and lines of cleavage. Lines of cleavage identify the orientation of fiber bundles. And when the skin is overstretched, collagen fibers may stretch to form a striae or stretch mark. UV rays can also increase or reduce the flexibility and thickness of the dermis, resulting in wrinkles. So if you don't want wrinkles when you're older, stay out of the sun or use lots of sunscreen. Innervation and blood supply, nerve fibers are present in the dermis. And the dermis will contain blood vessels that can vasoconstrict, get smaller to shunt blood away from the periphery. That'll happen if your body's trying to conserve body temperature, or these blood vessels can vasodilate, which will widen them, and that is used to move blood towards the periphery for releasing heat when the body's trying to dissipate its heat or cool down. Mechanoreceptors are nerves that perceive the environment. Meissner's corpuscles, Pacinian, Merkel, and free nerve endings are all different types of mechanoreceptors. The subcutaneous layer is deep to the integument, and it just helps to protect, store energy, and thermally insulate the rest of the body. Functions of hair then, hair helps to protect, retain heat, sensory reception. It's great for helping to you visually identify someone, and it helps to disperse chemicals. These are the structures that are epidermal derivatives. They include your hair, nails, and exocrine glands. This is a look at hair, the major zones of the hair. The erector pili muscles attach to the hair shaft. And when the erector pili muscles pull on the hair shaft, they will produce goosebumps, causing the hair to stand up. And this is a look at the hair and the anatomy of the hair itself, the root and hair bulb. You guys will be going over the anatomy of the integument system in lab. Exocrine glands can be sweat or sebaceous. Sweat produces the watery solution. Sweat is sudoriferous, is just another word for sweat, and they can be merocrine or apocrine, and sebaceous produce oily secretions. Merocrine sweat glands, the secretion is 99% water. They're numerous in their hands, soles of the feet, the forehead, and those are the functions listed there. Apocrine, their secretion is a little bit thicker, cloudier, and bacterial growth causes distinct odor in these regions, which are listed there as well. And then sebaceous glands secrete oil that helps to prevent drying of hair and skin. They'll be inactive during childhood, and then sex hormones at puberty cause their secretions to increase. So this is a look at the different glands and where they're located. Aging of the integument: with age, your skin repair takes longer. I noticed that when my dad gets cut, it just takes a longer time for him to repair that cut versus my 2-year-old daughter. The number of melanocytes decreases, so certain sun-exposed areas can be dark spots. The immune responsiveness diminishes, collagen content decreases, which produces wrinkles. UV radiation can damage skin cell DNA. Skin cancer is the most common form of cancer, so I would encourage all of you guys to stay out of the sun or use sun protection every day. There's 3 main types of skin cancer. Basal cell carcinoma is the most common and the least dangerous. Squamous cell carcinoma may metastasize and spread, and then malignant melanoma is the most deadly. It starts usually in a mole, and then if a mole changes shape or gets darker or wider, keep your eye on moles that change shape, and you'll want to see a dermatologist right away. That's the end of the chapter on the integument, and thanks for listening. At the end of this chapter, we're already ready for your first exam. So again, please use your online resources and connect to supplement your studying, and let me know if you have any questions.